Yeah. Analytics off the chain, other channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game. I'm a headliner.
What is going on, Headliner Nation? Jake, Fantasy Headliners. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there. Welcome to Week 6, where we're talking quarterbacks who are going to start and sit. Full disclosure, there's a lot of quarterbacks I like this week. There's a lot of guys out there with some potential for some serious high ceilings, but we're going to go through every matchup here in just a second for Week 6. However, before we dive into Week 6, how did we do in Week 5? And all things considered, not a bad week. Out of the 30 quarterbacks we gave a start or sit designation to that completed their games and did not get injured here this past weekend, 19 of them were correct for an accuracy percentage of 63%. Some of our biggest misses, Jameis Winston out there looking like vintage Jameis. Davis Mills. Has Davis Mills turned the corner? What about Baker Mayfield? Baker Mayfield throwing it all over the field, utilizing David Njoku. What year is it? Some of the biggest hits, though, we saw Matt Ryan come out and still have a solid game despite not having Calvin Ridley. We had him as a start last week. Same for Joe Burrow. Maybe he's got a throat contusion, but him and Jamar Chase are hooking up all the way down the field, so that's a good thing. And then Jalen Hurts, maybe garbage points, but garbage points are still fantasy points, and had himself another good week. But I got to remind you one more time about our October giveaway here through Prize Picks. You sign up for a new Prize Picks account. Either go to the website, there's a link down below, download the app, create a new account, and use the referral code Headliners. Once you make that initial $20 deposit, they'll match that deposit all the way up to $100. Plus, you'll be entered into our October giveaway: a signed CMC jersey, a Manscaped Perfect Package 4.0, a $50 Fanatics gift card, and a mystery pylon from Pristine Auction. All totaled, valued at over $350, so you do not want to miss out on winning this bundle giveaway. Head over to Prize Picks and get that account set up now, but let's dive into Week 6. Let's kick it off here Thursday Night Football with a good one, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Philadelphia Eagles. And here's a matchup between two quarterbacks, two top 7 quarterbacks here in fantasy football. And for Tom Brady, you never sit Tom Brady. He's had his second now 5-touchdown game of the early 2021 season. He's putting up some big numbers, averaging over 27 fantasy points a game, leads all quarterbacks in red zone attempts as well, with 42 of them inside the 20. What that's telling me is this is just not some fluke that Tom Brady's out there throwing a ton of touchdowns. He's getting these scoring opportunities in this high-powered offense, and there's no reason to think why he's going to slow down anytime soon. Now, he is dealing with a thumb injury, but he seems good to go. He's already out there on social media posting some videos saying, "Let's go, I'm ready for it." If he was really in doubt of missing, I don't think those videos would be coming out. Tom Brady, every single week, going to stay in the start column for right now. As for Jalen Hurts, man, he keeps you worrying, doesn't he? I mean, do you ever find yourself sitting there on Sunday and you're watching Jalen Hurts, and at halftime he's got like 8 points, and you're going, what the hell is going on? Like, great, I never should have started Jalen Hurts. Then he ends the game and has like 27 points. That all seems to happen in the fourth quarter on a weekly basis, and that's kind of what we're going to expect weekly from Jalen Hurts. As much as I hate that, it's all about the garbage points for Philadelphia because the offense seems lost at times. He's struggling going down the field consistently. Every once in a while, you'll see a flash of some great chemistry down the field with his receivers. Then sometimes it's just way off, right? It just looks completely off, but that rushing upside is going to remain there. And if you could say one thing about the Tampa Bay defense, is that they're more vulnerable there through the air as of right now, allowing 22 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks. I expect there to be an early lead here by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, forcing the Eagles to play from behind once again. I like the garbage points. I hate that it has to play out that way every single week for Jalen Hurts, but the upside is just too huge. The rushing upside keeps the floor safe, and that's why he's going to be a start once again. So we move on to Sunday football, Miami Dolphins, Jacksonville Jaguars, and the return of Tua. Potentially, I mean, he's eligible to return off the IR here this week, but does it actually happen? Honestly, I don't really expect it. Now, not with Miami traveling to London. Anyway, maybe if this was a home game, maybe there's a better chance, but with the London schedule, why rush it? Why rush it back against the Jacksonville Jaguars? The Miami Dolphins are a struggling football team, to say the least, right now. They're playing the Jacksonville Jaguars, who have their own struggles to worry about. The wide receiving options there are banged up a little bit with Will Fuller and Devontae Parker. Why rush to back into a bad situation? It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Like I said, especially with it being in London. Honestly, we just roll with Jacoby Brissett once again. He hasn't played half bad. I mean, he's got weapons that he likes to utilize, right? With Mike Gesicki, Jalen Waddle, Myles Gaskin, maybe that pass-catching weapon they need right now. It gives Jacoby Brissett a decent floor, especially with Jacksonville allowing right around 20 fantasy points per game. Honestly, it may not be sexy, but I'll start me some Jacoby Brissett here this week. He's just not going to be ranked very high, right? When it comes to my rankings here, end of week, you're not going to see Jacoby Brissett's name very high. More of a Superflex 2 QB league option, a lower tiered option right there. For Jacksonville, though, it's all about Trevor Lawrence, right? And this has the makings of a good game for him as well. Miami allows the 6th most points to opposing quarterbacks at 22 fantasy points per game. And you know Jacksonville is almost always playing from behind. But they just make some questionable decisions, right? I mean, what are they doing out there? Why is, Jamal Agnew and Tavon Austin getting more combined targets than Laviska Shenault and Marvin Jones Jr.? Like, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and it really explains why bad teams tend to play bad. However, for Trevor Lawrence, he now has back-to-back games with a rushing touchdown, so that's definitely going to help his floor. But he's only had one game all year long in which he threw for more than one passing touchdown. He needs that rushing upside in order to see that safe play on a weekly basis. It could happen here, right? In a London game, going out there, they really have nothing to lose. Just go out there, throw the ball a bunch, try to entertain the fans. Because at this point, I feel bad for them having to see Miami and Jacksonville, but it is what it is. I'm going to start Trevor Lawrence and hope for garbage points for all 4 quarters here. Over to Chicago now for the Packers and Bears, and Aaron continues to be a solid play on a weekly basis. However, have you noticed that the ceiling just a little bit lower here this year than maybe in years past? Only one game so far this season in which he threw for more than 2 passing touchdowns in a game. And now he gets the Chicago defense pretty solid against opposing quarterbacks, allowing right around 16 fantasy points per game, 5th fewest in the NFL. What he really needs there is a true number 2 weapon to kind of step up in this offense. Who's it going to be? Big Bob Tonyan has basically disappeared. Who's going to be there opposite of Devontae Adams? Is it Randall Cobb this week? Whoever it is, he really needs to start utilizing that number 2 weapon just so the ceiling is raised. The floor still super safe, and he's definitely going to be a start. As for Justin Fields and the Chicago Bears, this kid is just struggling right now, and plus he's a little bit banged up as well. Not 100% healthy, but sounds like he's going to be good to go for this weekend's game. He's kind of looked unsure of himself at times in the pocket. If you watch some of these games, though, it's kind of like he's being held back. In my opinion, when quarterbacks really excel in the NFL, it's when they really let their instinct take over. I don't really feel like Justin Fields is being allowed to let his instinct take over as of right now. It kind of just feels like Matt Nagy's holding him back a little bit. He's being a little bit too reserved, not really reacting to things, and it's causing more mistakes than maybe we want to see from Justin Fields. I mean, going up against Green Bay, though, they allow 20 fantasy points per game. Their secondary is banged up. There's going to be better days coming for Justin Fields. I'm not writing this kid off just yet, but there needs to be a little bit more of a consistent floor, a consistent ceiling on a weekly basis, and I can't start him just yet. I'm going to be a sit in week 6. Now we go over to Detroit for the Bengals and Lions, and Joe Burrow has a throat contusion. I don't think I've ever said that. Have I? No? I've never said that before in 5 years. A throat contusion. Didn't even know it was a thing, really, but apparently it was. Had to spend some time in the hospital, but he should be good to go here this week, and I'm glad because the connection between him and Jamar Chase is sexy. I mean, this is exactly what we were hoping for on draft night, right? A lot of people, myself included at the time, thought that Penei Sewell would have been a better pick for the overall team. But now that we see Jamar Chase in this offense, they are lighting it up, and Jamar Chase looks like the clear number 1 out there, going to put up some huge numbers. But now they get a matchup against the Detroit Lions, another team banged up on defense. They're allowing over 18 fantasy points per game. We know that he still has T. Higgins there involved with Tyler Boyd, Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon in the backfield against the Lions. I love the chances here once again for Joe Burrow. Actually going to go over to Prize Picks. I'm going to smash the over on Joe Burrow, set at 264.5 passing yards as of right now. I'm going to take that over this week. For the Detroit Lions and Jared Goff, I just can't. If I go to click it, it's like it just doesn't work. Like I can't get myself to start Jared Goff. And it's nothing really against him. It's the entire Lions offense. It's the crying in the press conferences. It's the weird, in my opinion, offensive mistakes, offensive game plans. I mean, he's only got 2 touchdowns over his last 3 games combined. That's not what you want to have from your starting quarterback. Sure, they're going to be throwing a lot, but they can't find open targets. They can't seem to get TJ Hawkinson involved on a weekly basis. Jared Goff doesn't have that rushing upside to fall back to. The questionable play calling, the low ceiling, a matchup against Cincinnati. It's going to be a sit once again this week. Texans and Colts, and did Davis Mills flip a switch? Is he legit? Has he arrived in the NFL? I mean, he just had a huge week 5, 312 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. I mean, is this what we're going to expect from Davis Mills going forward? Or is the dude like Vanilla Ice and was just like a one-hit wonder and we probably don't hear anything else rest of the season? The fact that there's even that question that a lot of people can look at it and be like, maybe it was just a one-hit wonder, is just enough cause for me to not want to take that risk. Even though it's a pretty decent matchup. The Colts allow over 25 fantasy points per game, third most in the NFL to opposing quarterbacks. It's just hard to trust Davis Mills in week 6. There are so many good options that even though I like what I saw from him in week 5, I got to see it again to make sure it wasn't a fluke, right? Flukes happen in the NFL. In case you haven't noticed, we saw David Blow a couple years ago go out and have a good, I mean, come on. You know what I mean? So not taking anything away from Davis Mills, but I got to see more than just one flash, one game before I really start trusting him in my starting lineup as a fantasy football player. So going to sit Davis Mills. For Carson Wentz, though, he's starting to gain a little bit of momentum, right? Back-to-back games with at least 21 fantasy points scored in each game. I like that. But he's really starting to utilize Michael Pittman, which is really what's helping him here. It's that big play option deep down the field, kind of what he used to have in Philadelphia with like an Alshon Jeffrey. It's kind of what Michael Pittman is. If they can start utilizing Paris Campbell a little bit more, Zach Pascal at times, Mo Ali Cox is definitely a name that can help raise this ceiling on a weekly basis as well, especially once you get inside the red zone. Plus, they're really starting to utilize Jonathan Taylor on the ground. And when you utilize him on the ground and he finds the success that he's finding here as of late, it opens up the passing games even more because defenses have to creep into the box to try to slow him down. That is what's helping Carson Wentz as of right now. Going against Houston, they allow 20 fantasy points per game. He's definitely getting healthier. It seems like I saw him scramble outside the pocket a few times this past week. And I was like, get on it, boy. Because last time we heard, he had dual sprained ankles, which doesn't sound like mobile quarterback at all. But he was able to make a few plays happen, scramble outside the box. Now, no, he's not Lamar Jackson out there, but at least he can somewhat move, which is definitely what I want to see. The Colts need to start winning, and they need to start winning now if they want to have a chance in this division. I like the opportunity here this week against Houston. I'm going to start Carson Wentz. Rams and Giants up next, and this could be a matchup of 2 top 12 quarterbacks. I mean, Daniel Jones is what you would call concussed after last week, though. I mean, he was a rumbling, bumbling, stumbling during the game, if you know what I mean. He took a big hit, and does he play now this week? Kind of what we need to wait and see, right? Does he clear the concussion protocol in time to get into this ball game? If he doesn't, I'm probably going to avoid everything to do with the New York Giants in this game. Because when he's on the field, even if he plays this week, he's going to have to deal with Aaron Donald. And that's not exactly ideal for opposing quarterbacks. Plus, he has no Saquon Barkley. Kenny Golladay is banged up. Darius Slayton is banged up. Sterling Shepard is banged up. Heck, I'm even hearing word that Kadarius Toney is banged up. Plus, are there any repercussions from punching a player? I don't know all these things yet. A lot of questions surrounding this entire offense in New York, and I really don't want any part of it here with Daniel Jones. As of right now, a little bit too risky for me. Until I get more information, he's going to be a sit. As for Stafford, though, tons of weapons. He's healthy, playing the Giants, who allow over 22 fantasy points per game, the 9th most in the NFL. And with the likes of Bobby Trees, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson, Deshaun Jackson, Tyler Higbee, Darrell Henderson, this guy's got weapons everywhere at all different levels of the offense. He can make things happen all game long. Absolutely love the potential. He's definitely going to be a start. On to the Kansas City Chiefs Washington football team, and have the Chiefs been figured out? Because as far as Chiefs standards go, they're struggling overall in 2021. I mean, who ever would have thought that the piece that was holding this offense together was Sammy Watkins? I don't know. I mean, I had to bring it up because he's not there and it's falling apart. I don't know. Anyway, forget that. Mahomes, though, kind of coming off, I guess what you could call his quote-unquote worst game of the year. 272 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, but had 61 yards rushing. That's 24 fantasy points. As a floor in a bad game, I'll take that every single week, especially going up against a struggling Washington defense. You don't sit Patrick Mahomes. For Taylor Heinicke, though, and the Washington football team, this is a great chance for him to kind of bounce back and really show what he can do in an offense, because we didn't get to see it in week 5 very well. Kansas City allows 28 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks, most in the NFL among all teams. Now, Kansas City, they're still scoring points, right? That's not an issue. Maybe they're not scoring 40 a game, but they're still able to put points up on the board, which is going to mean that Washington's going to have to keep their foot on the pedal. And plus, we see that rushing upside on a weekly basis from Taylor Heinicke, which is great. He's averaging right around 4 fantasy points a game just from rushing stats alone over the last 3 weeks. Did you know that? I don't know if you knew that, but yes, he has some rushing upside, which is helping boost that floor on a weekly basis. I'm hoping for a back and forth high scoring game, and no, not just because I'm going to be at this game. I really want to see some fireworks, something exciting, and Taylor Heinicke is somebody who can put up some big numbers. Don't write him off. He's going to be a start for me here this week, even though when the rankings come out, he's not going to be ranked super high. Now we drop down to Carolina for the Vikings and the Panthers, and the hell was that, Sam? I mean, Sam Darnold out there looking like old school New York Jet Sam Darnold last week, and I do not like to see that. You better not make that something that we see on a weekly basis out there, Sam. But for sure, his worst game of the season. But now he's got a pretty tough matchup going up against the Minnesota Vikings, who allow only 17 fantasy points per game. But does he get Christian McCaffrey back? If he does, that greatly helps his floor because he's got his check down weapon right back there and ready to go. Plus, opposing defenses have to creep into the box to pay attention to Christian McCaffrey, which opens things up down the field for the likes of a DJ Moore, potentially, who we already know has the eye of Sam Darnold. Am I overly worried about Sam Darnold? No, it's been one game and he's played so well this year. Plus now he has, rookie tight end Tommy Tremble, another name that he can look at in the red zone to really help him out. Going to start Sam Darnold here once again in a matchup going up against the Minnesota Vikings. As for Kirk Cousins, we had ourselves another one of those you like that moments on the sideline. I thought he was going to kill his coach at one point. I thought he was going to beat him into submission there, but Kirk Cousins too nice of a guy to do that. I was getting worried there for a second, but he's got such a safe floor weekly. Does he get Dalvin Cook back? Because that's obviously going to be a help to him, just like it's a help to Sam Darnold if they get Christian McCaffrey back. But going against the Carolina Panthers, it's a very difficult matchup. It's a lot easier to throw on Carolina than it is to run on them, though. Secondary, a little bit banged up. Carolina allows right on 18 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks. The upside is going to be there on a weekly basis with the likes of Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen and KJ Osborne. If he gets Dalvin Cook back, even better. With that safe floor, though, and that touchdown upside, going to start Kirk Cousins in week 6. Up to Baltimore now for the Chargers and the Ravens, my Manscaped matchup of the week. As soon as this video is over, head over to manscaped.com. Find yourself an early Christmas present to give to yourself. Fellas, use the promo code HEADLINERS at checkout. I'm going to give you 20% off and free shipping if you head over there after this video. Definitely some good products here to add to your travel bag this season. But as for the game, a matchup of the top 2 quarterbacks from week 5. Justin Herbert and Lamar Jackson both finished 1 and 2 just last week. 2 quarterbacks inside the top 5 for the season. Now Lamar Jackson, who is playing great, should be getting back Rashad Bateman, and if that's the case, really elevates this passing game even more. We know about the rushing upside, and at times he can just take over the ball game. You don't draft Lamar Jackson and then not start him. The deep balls that we're seeing on a weekly basis, though, to Hollywood Brown are definitely, a great sight for all of us fantasy football owners out there. A solid defense for the Chargers, though. They only allow right around 16.5 fantasy points per game, but Lamar Jackson isn't normal. You're going to start him. As for Herbie, same thing you can say, right? He is on fire as well. 12 total touchdowns over just the last 3 games, plus no interceptions over that same time span. Tons of weapons. We see Mike Williams just absolutely breaking out all over the field. Keenan Allen, at times Jared Cook, Donald Parham, Austin Eckler, absolutely killing it. Going to be a great matchup to watch, and 100% you're starting Justin Herbert. On Arizona and Cleveland now, and look at Baker Mayfield last week, finishing inside the top 10. Get it, Baker. That's what I'm talking about. Bake show in week 5, but it did take a 71-yard touchdown to David Njoku in order for that to happen, which I think we can all agree it's not really a normal occurrence there in Cleveland. It's just such a run-heavy team. And week 5 was the only week all season in which Baker had more than 1 passing touchdown. So a lot of things to kind of pay attention to here. It's an offense that really wants to keep the ball away from their opponents, which works because they got to keep it away from Arizona to have a chance in this game. Arizona can score points, and they can score points on everyone. In my opinion, if Baker Mayfield eclipses that 18-point mark this week, it's because he saw another big play like we saw last week to David Njoku. A little bit too big play dependent, a little bit risky, could be some garbage points, but I'm not going to risk it here with Baker Mayfield. He's going to be a sit. As for Kyler Murray, could be a great game. Going up against Cleveland, who we know can score some points at times, but they allow 23 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks. And Arizona can beat you every single way possible. Kyler with his legs, with his arm, through the air. However it may be, they have weapons everywhere. DeAndre Hopkins, we've seen Christian Kirk and Rondale Moore and Chase Edmonds and James Conner. They can beat you many different ways, and they're playing so well right now in Arizona that you can't ever sit Kyler. I mean, you probably drafted the dude in like the first 4 rounds. Anyway, you're not sitting Kyler Murray. Of course, he's going to be a start. Vegas and Denver now, and how does Derek Carr react post-Gruden? I mean, this is kind of tough on the players, too. Kind of puts them in a difficult situation as well. A new coach coming in. How do things change going forward? Because Carr coming off his first game without a touchdown all year long, which is not ideal, right? I mean, now he gets a matchup going up against Denver, which isn't ideal as well. And plus, it's going to be in Denver. They're the number 2 defense in the NFL against opposing quarterbacks, allowing only 14 fantasy points per game. Now, the recent struggles have kind of been there anyway. Do they continue with Derek Carr? Because he hasn't eclipsed 260 yards passing over the last 2 weeks. You remember to start the season, this guy was throwing for like 400 yards a week. Now, all of a sudden, it hasn't been the case. With the change from John Gruden to the new coaching staff, I don't know. There's a lot surrounding this that really makes me want to question or not whether we should trust Derek Carr the first week that this has happened. And honestly, I prefer to sit him this week. Let's see how this offense reacts and then reevaluate week 7. As for Teddy Two Gloves in the Denver Broncos, still a solid floor play on a weekly basis. Only 1 interception on the year, which we love to see him taking care of the football. Has 2 touchdowns through the air in 3 out of the 5 games in which he's played this season. Plenty of weapons to still throw to. A solid running game behind him. Plus, we don't know how the Raiders are going to react as well here. I still think there's a safe floor for Teddy Bridgewater here, and he's going to be in the start column for me in week 6. Up to New England now for the Cowboys and Patriots. We just had ourselves another typical Dak day, right? 302 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception there in week 5. He now has 3+ touchdowns in 4 out of the 5 games so far this season. His tight ends, they've really stepped up, right? Dalton Schultz coming in. We've seen a banged up Amari Cooper, but with the likes of Tony Pollard and Zeke playing well and Dalton Schultz, Blake Jarwin at times, it's really kept the ceiling super high for Dak on a weekly basis, and that's what we absolutely love to see. Plus, vintage Zeke in the backfield is only a positive, right? That only helps things out because like we've mentioned numerous times here, when the running game is working, it forces defenders inside the box, and that really gives more one-on-one opportunities on the outside of the likes of Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb, which we love to see. Now going up against New England, they allow right around 16 fantasy points per game, but it doesn't really matter. With the way that Dak is playing, the way the Cowboys as a whole are playing, you're going to continue to start him on a weekly basis. As for Mac Jones, though, it's not enough TDs for me. I like more TDs than that. I mean, he's only had 5 touchdowns through 5 games. The offensive line is banged up. The running game is an absolute mess right now. Damian Harris is hurt. I mean, we're having fumbling issues. Can we really protect Mac Jones against that front of Dallas? Trayvon Diggs on the outside is an elite cornerback. No, not against Dallas this week. We're not starting Mac Jones. He's firmly in the sit column for me. Takes us to Pittsburgh for the Seahawks and the Steelers, and I'm already missing Mr. Unlimited with his broken finger, which was nasty looking. But we get Geno Smith. Okay? I mean, he came in, didn't look half bad, right? Geno came in, we're like, okay, get it, Geno, but come on, let's be realistic. It's still Geno Smith, even though he looks somewhat good. How does he really utilize the weapons he has? Because he's not going to utilize them the same way that we've seen Russell Wilson do it. If we did, there'd be a quarterback competition, and I'm sorry, but there was no competition between Russell Wilson and Geno Smith. So what do we see going forward? Well, the running game, it's banged up. We don't even know if we're going to have Chris Carson, and if we do, is he 100% healthy? Pittsburgh allows right around 20 fantasy points per game, but it's really big play dependent, and I'm kind of nervous that the turnovers could kind of pop up at times. I kind of compare Geno Smith to a Jameis Winston type, right? Where there's going to be games where he looks good. There's going to be games where he looks like he's never played quarterback before in his life. And a matchup this week against the Pittsburgh Steelers on the road in Pittsburgh, there's just better options in my opinion, so I'm going to sit one Geno Smith. I know it's probably not a surprise to you guys, but for Pittsburgh and for Ben, is it just me, or is he just scary to start in fantasy football? Like, you start him and you're like, I don't know if I should do this, because you see all the clips all over the place and you just don't know what you're going to get on a weekly basis. Now we know that Juju is hurt. We know that Seattle is easier to run on than throw on, and we know they're going to utilize Najee Harris a butt ton every single week. Ben, he's immobile. He's had 6 turnovers through 5 weeks. I mean, it helps that they're playing at home, but it's still too risky in my opinion. This game could turn ugly really quick, and I'm going to avoid it altogether and sit Big Ben. Which takes us to Monday Night Football, Buffalo Bills, Tennessee Titans, and Josh Allen continues his dominance here in 2021. The QB 4 overall in fantasy football. The dude just goes out and scores like 20 points a week like it's easy, right? Every game he's scoring 20 points. He's got that rushing upside. Now he's hurdling people, so you know he's super confident out there, feeling like Barry Sanders or whatever it is. I mean, Josh Allen is playing great football, going up against Tennessee, who allows over 21 fantasy points per game. Another easy start this week, in my opinion, for one Josh Allen. What about Ryan Tannehill, though? I'm going to be completely honest. I'm worried about Ryan Tannehill here this week. He needs healthier weapons. I mean, even with A.J. Brown back out there, he doesn't look 100%. We know Julio Jones, still not 100%. A lot of the offense going through Derrick Henry on the ground. Plus, Buffalo's defense is absolutely elite, allowing only 12 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks. Now, Tanny only has one game all year with more than one passing touchdown. The ceiling just hasn't been there. There's a ton of red flags here and a bad matchup. I'm going to head over to Prize Picks right now, smash the under on Ryan Tannehill, which is currently set at 240.5 yards, and sit him here in week 6, even though I hate to do it. All right, those are my starts and sits for the quarterback position here, week 6 fantasy football. Don't forget, head over to prizepicks.com right now. There's a link down below in the description, or download the app, create that new account, get yourself entered in there. Use the promo code Headliner so you can be entered in to that giveaway. You make that initial deposit and we'll match it up to $100. So should be a lot of fun playing together for the rest of the season. Looking forward to giving that huge package away to somebody as well. So if you enjoy the content, do me a favor, hit the like button, consider subscribing if you haven't already, because if you haven't, why haven't you? We got you covered all year long to help everybody walk away with more fantasy football championships. That's what it's all about. So hopefully you have a great rest of your day, a great week. We'll talk to you later.